Happy summer! I'm Tricia Morris from Club Scrap, and today I'll be sharing my new quad card box project. I'm calling it that because it is a box that holds 4 cards. I'm using Club Scrap's brand new collection released in July called Let It Be, along with my clever and efficient cutting formulas and some really fun time-saving techniques. The first time we do the project, I just encourage you to sit back and watch how it all comes together, and then go back and watch this video again at your leisure to make one of your own. Let's get started. Let's take another look at this quad card box. I've got a ribbon closure, a simple decoration on the front, and when you open it, you will see a box, decoration on the left here, and inside the box, as I mentioned, are 4 cards, 2 each that are very similar, and then I've also added 4 envelopes to the inside of the box. The coolest part about this project is that it only requires, get this, 4 sheets of paper. Isn't that awesome? So I'm going to be using some basic materials that I really love, including my Fiskars trimmer that we carry here at Club Scrap. Can't recommend that enough, as well as my 4-pocket organizer. Now, if you don't have one of these organizers, it's okay. You're just going to need to keep 4 or 5 piles handy as we organize all the pieces that we trim at the beginning of our time together. I also have a copy of my trimming instructions, which we will make available to you through a special link, and my materials gathered. For starters, from the Let It Be card kit, I'm using a dark yellow paper, the print from the card kit, a brown plain, and this beautiful textured ivory linen paper. Now, in my instructions, I always provide a very detailed diagram as well as written instructions that you can follow to create whatever we happen to be making. For this first set, do you see that really bold arrow on the diagram for this first color? That means the paper grain should dip easily from left to right. The reason for being aware of the grain direction is because later on we'll be folding the card in that direction, and we don't want to have one of those crumpled, ugly folds. So to determine the grain, just hold the paper by an edge, study whether it's dippy or stiff, and then rotate it 1 turn to study the behavior of the paper. Here you see how stiff it is, and then this way you can see how easily it dips in this direction, and that's exactly what we want, it dipping left to right. So I'll place this in the trimmer, and I'm going to go ahead and trim at 8.5. Now, if you're a card maker, you can use this formula again and again to make card bases. Then rotate that 8.5-inch piece and trim it at 11 and 5.5. Now, you just made 2 card bases. These are the same size. As I mentioned, we're making 4 cards, so I'm going to use the 4 pockets of my clever little organizer here to separate all of the pieces for each of the 4 individual cards. So put one of these in pocket C, or the 3rd pocket, and one of these in pocket D. Now that leaves us with this really thin little strip here. I'm going to go ahead and trim that at 6 1/4. And set this one aside because this is going to be part of the box lid. And believe it or not, I'm using this in card set B, or card B. Now I'm going to take the remaining strip. We'll trim this horizontally at 9 1/4, 6 1/2, and 3 1/4. Then take this 3 1/4-inch piece and rotate it and cut again at 3 1/4 to make a square. Put the square in pocket or pile B. Put this other larger piece in A. This, my friends, I'm sorry to say, is a scrap. Then you have 2 more pieces the same size. Put one in C and one in D. So we've got our distribution of things happening, and so far 1 tiny little scrap. Now we're moving on to this beautiful printed paper from the Let It Be kit. And I'm going to just, if your print has an orientation, I'm going to put the top of the print on my left. And I'm going to trim at 10 1/4 and 6 1/4. And then rotate and trim at 9 and 4 1/2. Now both of these pieces will be used to decorate the outside and inside cover of my little box. So I'm going to set these aside, and there's a small rectangle left over. I'm going to trim this one at 3 1/4 and take that 3 1/4-inch piece and put it in pocket A, and then this other square goes in pocket B. The next piece to the right of my trimmer, I'll cut horizontally at 10 1/2 and 5 1/4. Put one in pocket C and one rectangle in pocket D. And then this, I'm going to flip it over to the plain side and set it with the things I'm going to be using to make my little my little book. There should be one more strip, and this one will trim horizontally at 11 and 5.5. And I'm going to put one in pocket A and the other in pocket B. And my friends, this is a scrap. So just hang in there with me a little longer for some more trimming. This time I'm going to check the grain direction again, and I want the paper to dip easily from top to bottom. We'll make 2 cuts. The first one's at 11 3/4, and then 7.5, and then rotate and cut at 9. This will become the tray that actually creates our box. And then we have this little rectangle here that I'll trim at 3 3/4. And I'm going to take one of these rectangles and put it in pocket C and the other in D. Next, we have this larger piece here. I'm going to trim it horizontally at 11. I'll place this in pocket B. And this little piece, I'm sorry to say, is a scrap. And this long one, I'm going to be incorporating it into the cover. So I'm going to set that aside with all the materials for my tray. And then I have an ivory plane. This one, I'm going to be trimming it so the paper dips easily from top to bottom. This one's important. And I'll start by trimming at 6.5. Rotate, trim at 11. And 10 1/4. Now this becomes the tray lid. So once again, I'll set that aside. This, both of these strips need to be trimmed at 5 1/4. If you can't see, you can bring your paper down a little lower level with this guide right here. So the skinnier one goes in pocket D and the wider one can go in C. It doesn't really matter. Then we have this larger piece remaining. So let's trim this at 8.5. And this large piece goes in pocket A. And then this final rectangle will trim at 4 3/4. This one will go in pocket B. And I'm sorry to inform you that we have just a few additional small scraps. So as we are making this, this will be the only thing not used from your 4 sheets of paper that we started with to create the folio, the tray, the lid, and the whole thing, and then the 4 cards. I'm going to grab my score pal. Let's do the most important scoring that we need to do in order to make the tray and the lid. So I'm going to take this larger white piece. It's 6.5 by 10 1/4, and we'll score it 4 3/4. And 5.5. And we can just set that aside. Now this piece, I want to score 3/4 of an inch and 1.5 inches from every outside edge. So just rotate and continue. There, now you have the whole perimeter scored. In your envelopes, there are also several card bases. I'm going to choose to wait to do my scoring until a little bit later. Now here we have all the pieces required to make our tray and lid. Let's start by making the tray for our little box. And I like to work with this piece of paper in a vertical orientation. And I like to have the bumps facing up as I prepare some tabs. So with the paper vertically positioned, I'm going to start at the second score line and I'm going to remove it with my scissors. So I'll cut from the left side of the line up to the second intersecting score line and repeat on the other side to make this little V-shaped dart and remove that piece of paper. If you've been following me for a while, you've seen me make a box like this before many times. Now I'm going to cut to the left of this first score line, come in from the edge of the paper, and remove that corner and score line all together. And what that does is makes a tab and a corner. This is in the right-hand corner, and I'm going to go to the left corner and do the same thing. So second score line, I'll remove it by cutting a dart to the second intersecting score. And then I'm going to angle toward this intersecting corner here and remove it from the left edge, remove the corner. And now I've created 2 tabs that are running parallel with each other. This is important. Rotate 180 degrees, not horizontally, but make sure the paper is vertically positioned and repeat the exact same thing. So just cut your darts and remove your corners. Now you can just fold on all of the score lines all the way around to create these little tabs and flaps. On these small tabs, you only need to fold on the second score. You don't need to do the first one. When you finish folding, now it's time to glue this into a box, and this is very, very easy. I'll begin by using some ATG tape, and I'm going to go along the outer long flap on this side and on this side. All you need to do here is just glue this flap onto its neighbor by pushing down on the adhesive. Isn't that easy? Then these tabs kind of get turned inward. And I'm going to apply glue to the outer flap on the short edges. That's why I like to work vertically, so you can always keep your orientation straight. Now we're going to form side walls by turning these walls upward. And then the tabs are turned at a 90-degree angle, and bring this short wall up and around the tabs to form a little tray. Rotate and repeat to do the same thing on the other side, up and around. And you're locking those tabs inside, making a triple wall here, a double wall here. So a nice sturdy little box. Now we have our beautiful textured ivory linen that was included in the Let It Be kit. I'll fold on those score lines that we made earlier. And this next step is optional. If you'd like, you can take a corner chopper. I like to open the wings and use it on the 1/2-inch setting and round the corners. It just gives it a nice finished look. Now I've gone ahead and trimmed off 2 12-inch pieces of ribbon. It's probably more ribbon than you need, but at least I have that ready to go. And the trick here is to attach the ribbon to the center of the left and right side of the inside of your cover. So this paper has a texture. I've got the smooth side facing up, and I'm going to use my ruler to help me find the center of this paper. So if I bring the ruler to a 3.5-inch measurement on each end, that puts the 0 center of my ruler in the middle. And that way, if I want, I could mark it. That's an option. Or I can just simply apply my adhesive. I always check to make sure the grain of the ribbon is wanting to wrap itself around, and that way I know it's going to go around this way, so I want the grain to go that way. I can even, instead of marking, I can just use the lines on the ruler to center the ribbon, just like I centered the paper. And then we can repeat the same on the other side. Just bring the ruler to the center. Add some adhesive, check your grain direction of the ribbon, because the ribbon's going to want to turn one way or the other, and that'll be very clear once you start looking for it. So now I know that my ribbons are nicely centered on my cover. Next, I'm going to take this box, and since it's hard to put adhesive on the back of this, I'll put adhesive around the perimeter, leaving a little bit of a reveal. This is just so quick and easy. I love this project. You could just crank these out like nobody's business. And then I'm going to align the edge of the box with the edge, the right edge of the score line, the right score line, centered from top to bottom. And that will give me a nice margin on all the sides. Now for the left side, earlier we trimmed this printed paper to fit right into this space. The only thing we have left to do is determine which orientation we want the paper to be placed there. And then once again, we'll create our matching rounded corners. The corner chomper. We'll add some adhesive. So notice I just rounded 2 corners and add that to the plate, to that spot. See how quickly this is coming together. I absolutely love this. Okay, now we have another cover here. And this is going to be how I want it to be placed, right side up. So I can round the upper and lower right corners in this case. Before I attach it, I'm going to do a little decorating. So we trimmed this yellow piece earlier, and we also set aside this brown piece. Let me show you a couple of assembly tricks here. Taking my grid ruler, and I want to attach this about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the yellow. So I'm going to line up the first set of cubes in my ruler with the border strip, and then I'm going to take my bookbinding glue, it's one of my favorite adhesives, and just run it along the edge of the ruler. Then I can take this strip that probably would have gone into the garbage as a scrap, and I'm going to place it just any old way along the ruler's edge where I have adhesive. Then I can take my scissors, trim away the ends. I know I'm going really fast, but when you do this for yourself, you'll just be able to follow the video at your own pace. Now I can put adhesive on the back of this strip, and because I tend to glue things down on a slant, I want to do this 1/4 of an inch from the edge. So I can do that. Rest this against the ruler's edge. I know it's level because it's straight on the line here. And then I can attach this to my project. And that's a nice start to decorating my box. Later on, I can use the plain side of this piece, and I actually rounded the corners of this just on the right edge as well. And I just stamped couple things on there from the beautiful Let It Be stamp set right onto this plain side of the print, and that's what's going to create the front of my box. How cool is that? Okay, so next I'm going to make the cards. So for card 1, since I did trim this paper so that the fold would occur in cooperation with the grain, scoring is an option. It's not required. Simply fold it in half and you can burnish. And now you can see that for card 1, I'm going to add this panel and then these 2 panels nest. I can do it like this. So I'll set that aside for a moment and then grab everything out of pocket B. So if you're using papers from your own stash, then substitute with tones of similar value. For example, this card base is darker in color and I've compensated for that. So check this out. We're going to make a similar setup. We've got a vertical anchoring strip. We have some a nesting square. And then on the inside, we have a liner and we have something you can stamp a greeting on if you'd like. That's of course optional. I'll set that aside. Now take everything out of pocket C. You can see why this is so much easier to have it sorted in my organizer ahead of time. Fold your card base. And for this one, we're going to make a horizontal card so that we have a nesting panel. We have an anchoring strip here. We have this dark brown piece layered with a bright yellow. Guess what? Everything comes out of pocket D. Fold your card base in half. You're folding with the grain so you have a nice pretty fold. Add your layer. Add your anchoring strip. Nest. You've got a nice card base happening here. Now, if I go back to my completed project, you can see how I used the stamps. And I store my stamps in a hubless DVD case. It's just on a bookshelf that's designed for DVDs, and it works really, really well. It's all indexed, so you can see exactly what I'm looking for when I'm shopping for stamps to use on a project. And you can see I combined the word bee and joyful here and added the bee on the left edge and some honeycomb and inked the edges a little bit. Now on the inside, we have a series of cards. Now our card kits do include ribbon. And so in fact, this ribbon is included in the Let It Be card kit, as well as this more lemony yellow. And then I just use stamped images here to decorate both the outside and the inside of the card. So be the change you want to see in the world. You're the bee's knees. Love all these bee themed puns. And then for the other 2 cards, I literally stamped images right on top of the printed paper, sentiment, some of the clover, and then made a simple basic bow. I do have a Ribbon Basics video if you're interested in watching to learn how to make pretty bows like that and use ribbon in your projects. And then you can see how I carried through with some of the corner rounding on the inside, both the panel and then the stamped sentiment. Finally, here we have our last card. And there it is with the little greeting stamped inside. And because it's an ivory base, I could just stamp directly on that. Now, our card kits include a lot more paper, obviously, so you could make another one if you'd like. And if you're not really a stamper, that's totally okay. Our card kits include pre-printed cut-apart sentiments that are designed to fit our projects. So these had to be retrofitted to accommodate my unique structure here. And again, I used the pre-printed cut-aparts to complete my sentiments, both on the outside and the inside, just making it very, very quick and easy. Check out this. I used goodies that came in the Let It Be card kit to finish these cards as well. Aren't they fun? Let's get ready to bumble. Now here's an example of what happens when you take the same exact quad card box instructions and use a different Club Scrap collection. My colleague Karen made this beautiful peony version from one of our other previous card kits. Check out the ribbon always included in the kit as well. And then it opens to reveal just some stunning cards. Karen also, rather than stamping, simply adapted the cut-aparts to create the artwork for her cards and got this done in just an hour or 2 while she was still answering phones and working here in the lobby. So isn't that amazing? What a great project. Our card kits come with envelopes, pre-printed cut-aparts, pre-printed papers, and then plain papers, ribbons, goodies, embellishments, all the like. And then I also provide the instructions to you to make a dozen or more greeting cards. We'll always make a minimum of a dozen cards. So this month, the official card kit formulas created 4 of these adorable impossible cards. We created 4 cards that have room for a gift card as well as a hidden message. And then we created this folio. So this was the inspiration for my workshop with you today, the folio and the 4 cards inside. And that's what got the inspiration ball rolling for this fun workshop. Again, I know I covered a lot of material in a short period of time. So remember, when you go back and watch the video again, you can work with me at your very own pace and even adjust your YouTube playback settings to a slower speed so that you can keep up without even having to push pause. If you want to make your quad card box with Club Scrap supplies, be sure to check out the Let It Be collection at clubscrap.com. And if you're interested in joining us at Club Scrap, we'd love to have you give it a try. It's risk-free. There's no minimum monthly requirement. It's my job to earn your loyalty. I hope you have a beautiful summer. Thanks for joining me.